Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second BNI Forward Powerful Together webinar series. I'm glad that all of you could have joined us today. This is a series of webinars brought to you by BNI UAE that has been broadcast over the course of the next few weeks, where you, our BNI community, could be supported through a series of topics, be it wellness, personal development, business and strategy, to lead forward through these difficult times. Before we move on, I would like to start off with a few guidelines for this morning's webinar. Please be sure you're using a high quality headset so that you can hear our speakers very well. We recommend you move to a place in your homes where you have a high-speed internet connection. Use the Q&A bar at the bottom of the panel, the screen that you would see, to put in your questions that you may have during the webinar. Speakers will answer them during the Q&A session. I also encourage you to try and put the name of the person you are associating that question to, so that our moderator would be able to identify the right person to answer that question for you. My name is Roshan. I'm from BNI Synergy, your host for the morning. And I'm ably supported by Suresh, who is my co-host as well from BNI Rising Phoenix, handling all the aspects in the background with another team to bring this series to you. This morning, we have lined up a topic called Communications in Leading the Way Forward, and we are sure you would gain some valuable insights on how you can communicate, be it with your customers, employees, stakeholders, etc. A quick glimpse of the speakers who are coming up is as follows. First, we would have Amit Vardhan from Prism Advertising. Then we will move on to Ramesh Menon from Brand Form. And finally, to Pradeep Kumar, who is from Watermelon Advertising, who will cover the topic, as I mentioned earlier, communications in leading the way forward. Let me now ask Shah, our National Director, to say a few words before we commence our session this morning. Vijay, over to you.
Thank you, Roshan. Good morning, everybody. The road ahead may appear to be a long one, but we can overcome the difficulties by staying vigilant. As a business, you have multiple stakeholders, your workforce, your clients and customers, your suppliers, and for some of you, investors too, be it friends and family who might have invested or lent to you towards your business, banks and finance houses, or even professional investors. And each of these is an important stakeholder. And as you navigate your way through the crisis, I think you need to provide clarity and respond quickly to them. So I'm proud that we have a pool of skilled, experienced, and talented members amongst our membership to guide you on the steps that you can take in communicating, in leading the way forward. And that's what makes and keeps us powerful together. Thank you in advance, Amit, Ramesh, and Pradeep, for your magnanimous contributions. Members, as Roshan explained, we've launched these series of webinars and events to provide additional support to you as you navigate your way through and out of this situation. And now more than ever will we realize that our network is what we're going to need most to grow forward together. I welcome you all and invite you to join us not only this morning, but also in the webinars we'll be hosting throughout the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. Right, so let's dive straight into our sessions this morning. And I'd like to introduce to you our first speaker. That is none other than Amit Vardhan. He's the CEO of Prism Advertising. Amit has had over 25 years of experience in advertising, marketing, and sales. He has also been a board member, director of marketing and sales, marketing head for some great and big corporates in India and the UAE. He has won the Golden Bugs Bunny Award for the best consumer product launch for Warner Brothers, organized by Warner Brothers themselves. He's worked for the government of Oman, She's a launch DC for BNI, a support director, and also a facilitator of our key skills trainings of BNI. He's been a member of the last, who's been a member of the last 2 years in that particular role. Something that very few people know about him is that he is a clinical hypnotherapist, NLP and Reiki practitioner. He has been in business with Prism Advertising UK, UAE, and India for over 15 years now. So I'm going to hand over to Amit, but before I do that, once again, I would like to remind you that the Q&A session, Q&A chat bar is available for you to put in your questions that you may have, and please make sure that you name the panelist you're addressing that question to. And Reem, our moderator, will take all these questions at the end of the session and have them answered by our panelists. So over to you, Amit, to take over your part of this webinar.
Good morning, BNI. Communications, the way forward. That's our topic for today. And as we progress, I will be taking you deep into how to communicate at this particular time and generally. So we'll start with what does communication entail. So there are these 5 W's. I made it simple for you all to understand, and that is the way you should define your communication. The first W is why. Why do you want to communicate? You want to communicate because you want to get leads, you want to promote your brands, you want to get trials, you want to get sales, or you want to get loyalty. So there should be one objective of your communication. If you have that one objective very clear, you will be able to communicate well. So either you get in leads, you would like to do brand building, you would like to get trials, you want to get sales, or you want to get somebody to do a repeat purchase or refer you to some other people. So define, because each one of them will also do some other roles, but the primary roles of a communication, you have to define which one do you want to go for. The second one is who. You know, a lot of people talk to us as advertising agencies, and they say, I can sell to anyone and everyone. You know, that's a big no in BNI. You can't sell to anyone and everyone because anyone and everyone don't exist. So you need to define who are the kind of people. If you're a cake shop, is it the catchment area or is it a particular kind of industry? You need to define who your communication goes to. So basically this who, the target audience, is divided into 2, which is a psychographic or a geographic division. So you can say they stay in these areas, or they behave like this, or they belong to a certain age group, a certain gender. So you need to define the target audience who you want to talk to. What is the message? And this we are going to talk in detail. So what should be your message during these times? Definitely you need to get your skill set, your product offering very clear. What are you going to tell them? Now, where or which, both these are about media. They are about where you are going to talk from, what platform you're going to use, where will you communicate your message from. So that is the media vehicle. That's what we call in our industry as a media vehicle. It could be newspaper, radio, TV, it could be online, digital, it could be your pack or your visiting card or your brochure, leaflet, whatever it is, it's a media carrying your message. It could be your menu card, right? And when is also very important in communication, because if you see, when Thursday comes, you pick up the paper and you keep getting a lot of these grocery ads, buy 2 get 1 free. There are, you know, Co-op will come out with a full page, Carrefour will come out with a full page. Why do they do this on a Thursday? Because they know Friday and Saturday are going to be off and you're going to go shopping for grocery. So there is a particular time of the week they appear in. There will be ads of ACs and AC maintenance when the summer is approaching. Just 2 months before the summer approaches, people will talk about refrigeration products, AC products. As Ramadan is approaching, you already started seeing some ads happening on food, because this is the time for food. So when could be a time of the year, when could be the time of the month. People get salaries around the end of the month. So a lot of these car ads, these kind of ads will come where you need a bigger capital investment would come during the end of the month. And which day of the week, like I gave you the example, which day of the week. So why, who, what, where, and when is going to define your communication. Now, today I'm going to talk about the two parts of communication. Out of them, I will talk about the first part, the message, what to say. And we can also talk about the media, where my colleagues, we have Roshan and Ramesh, who are also going to put up some light on those. But if you all need anything on that, we can talk about it later. So right now, I will cover the part where I will say how to create a good message for these times. So what to say is what I'm going to cover going forward. Next slide. Yeah, this is important. The edge of how to drive your message home is in today's time. The edge. Remember the edge. We will talk about creative strategies and strategic creatives to take this forward. Give your message the creative edge. So what is this edge about? Happy, hopeful, happening, hygienic, healthy, helping, honest, and humane. Why I put these things forward? Because these are the times, I am seeing some messages come to me which start with COVID-19 and how it is a doom and gloom time, and I just get switched off. Because this is not the time you would like to hear about anything going negative, sad. You're already into a mode where you are in a very different, I won't say bad, a shock situation. Some of us could be in a difficult situation. It won't be a bad situation. Things can go bad at times, yes, but it could be a difficult situation. So I'm not saying make positive, make it beyond positive. You will attract people when they want to listen to these things. Everybody you meet, they'll say, when is this going to open up? So you're going to drive hope. If you drive negativity, you can still say that it'll open up by next summer, but it would be nice, You're still driving hope, and rather being negative that no, now we are closed for a year. So it's the same thing said in two different ways. If you say it in a very hopeful way, they will go positive. Even if you have said the same thing, you could have said that in a negative way and send them back feeling sad about it. So be happy, be hopeful, give them hope, be happening, show them things are happening still. The world is alive. We are all having good fun, and there are things which are happening, and I have attended a few of them which are amazing. Yesterday, Vox Cinemas conducted a cinema quiz, and they had personalized messages on the popcorns which came to my house, which was so amazing. The kids are thrilled. Happening is that. Hygienic, because this is the time where people are talking about cleanliness. So put in these words in your communication. Healthy, how you can stay fit, how you can stay good, how the health is going to come, because these are the exact issues which are happening at this time. You are going to put these issues in a positive way. So helping, honest is very important, because people don't like to hear things which are not true, and you will disclose them on your way up sometime. Humane, it's people, it's about us. So that is important. Next slide. So we're talking about the creative edge. Yeah. Now we'll play a small ad for you. Samat, can you just play it for a minute for me? Because this shows, this is an industry which is really down and out, airlines. But see how they made a very happy commercial. There is voice, Samarth. You see people enjoying, you see people giving hope, you see the humane element, and you you feel that things are still happening. It's not shut forever. It is going to come back. So just an idea of people looking happy, things are happening, and there is hope. Thanks about it. You can take it forward. Okay, now this is a creative test. How would you evaluate a message? You have written down a message. Idea is you have written down or somebody has written down for you. Please evaluate it in a way, because if it comes from you, you already have bought it. Ask somebody else to do these ticks for you. But these are important things. The first thing, it should attract. It should call people to see it. It should get people interested in the product. Third thing is, it should create a desire. And the final thing is, it should call for action to do something. Do it now. Do it. If you do it now, you get something. And definitely these are big words, which we call the magical words, which have to be included at these times, because you need to be seen that you are giving. You can give free gifts. I got popcorns from Walk Cinema. You can give discounts because the times are tough. So you will create an immediate call for action. You can say try for free. A gym put a thing that we are going online. We are going to train you online, and if you don't lose or if you don't see that you're getting fit, I will send your money back. That gives a lot of reinsurance. Try for free, refund, redeem, get them vouchers, so that gets engagement. Refer to us to your friend if you think we are good. Offer, deal, these words are I'll show you a small piece which we have done for one of our BNI members, and with his permission. Can you play it, Samar, please? So you see free candles, free balloons, free messages. You can still send a cake to a person who's celebrating their birthday and make them happy. Can you go to the next slide? So the idea is, if you are an honest giver, you will gain. So to gain sales, follow the philosophy of BNI. You BNI guys, it's time for us, and it is the time for givers gain. Give honestly and you will benefit and gain. So honest givers will gain during this time. Even if you're offering your services, you're offering counseling, you're offering movie making, you're offering anything which you have. If you do it in an honest way, you will stand to gain. The way ahead is communication. So is communication the way ahead is not a question. Communication has always been a way ahead. Even if it is countries locked into a dispute, the only way you get ahead is communicate. So I would really urge you all to keep communications on, because out of sight could be out of mind. The form of media or vehicle would change during time to time. Maybe we'll say that at this time radio is not so effective, or is still effective, because people do travel, but not so effective as it used to be when we used to get into the car at one point of time. Maybe the timing we have to check of the radio when it's getting effective. So the media vehicles would change. Maybe the digital messaging, the webinars, the online platforms have become more powerful. The media keeps changing, but communications doesn't stop. Keep communicating so that you are not out of sight, out of mind. Can you please change the slide, Samar? Yes. Now, as I said, the change is faster now, as it is in information technology, in electronics, advertising and communications are also evolving. Keep up with the trends. They could be the digital trends, the social media trends, now the webinar trends, and the live event trends. A lot of this would be seen very soon. I'm having invitations for 4 or 5 live events every day, but content will still be the king. It is very important what you say. Where you say, yes, you will have places to say, but when you get an opportunity to say, say the right thing. Message will have to be adapted to the media so that it can interact, it can get your engagement. But the message will still need to be more and more and creative and should have the creative edge. Yes. You know, this is the final test of communication. Your wife, she is the customer, and the customer is not a maroon, she is your wife. It is a difficult situation to convince, but yes, if you can convince, you are a winner. So that is what David Ogilvy said in his book, Confessions of an Advertising Man. You need to be honest to get the communication through, otherwise it will not go through. Yep. Next slide. Remember the creative edge. To avoid hospital, stay home, stay safe. Thank you very much. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Amit. The creative edge, communication, the way forward. Thank you, Amit, for that outstanding speaking notes and presentation. Just to remind all of our attendees, the Q&A bar is available at the bottom of your screens. Please type in your questions to Amit. Just mention his name so that he can pick up those questions at the end of this webinar and answer them for you. So I'll give you about 10 to 15 seconds for anyone who has questions to please put them in now. Right, we'll now move on to our second speaker. He is Ramesh Menon, and I'd like to introduce him as follows. He is the CEO of Brand Form. Ramesh Menon represents the category of branding consultancy at the BNI Champions chapter. He holds a master's in visual communication from the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad in India, and a trained health and communications expert at the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. In the past, Ramesh has worked from HIV/AIDS projects, HIV/AIDS pandemic when it surfaced in India in the 90s, and as a consultant to the government of India. He's also worked for USAID, the Ford Foundation, and CARE International. He has been in the Middle East since 1999 and owns Brand Form, a design and branding agency. He is deeply interested in crisis communications, behavior changes, and technology for process automation. So over to you, Ramesh. Take it over from now. Thank you.
Morning, guys. I've got the sun straight in my face now, but that's fantastic. Samath, could you go ahead, please? So you probably heard people say, right? We are in the same boat. Everybody is in the same boat. No, we're not in the same boat. We're all in the same storm, that's for sure. So when we say we're in the same storm, we are all in our individual boats as husbands, wives, men, women, children. We are all trying to navigate through. The destination is the same. We want to get through, but ultimately we are navigating in our own boats. Next slide, please. And that applies to employers and employees as well. We are going through a time when our perceptions and needs are quite different. Next slide, please. As leaders, as employers or employees with leadership responsibilities, it is our duty to help our people navigate their route with respect, clarity, empathy, and responsibility. Next, which is why this presentation is all about internal communications, or how you can communicate internally with your team and use this opportunity, this fantastic opportunity, to take and maintain leadership. Next, please. So I'm going to run you through 9 different points, actually 10 points, on how you can practice internal communications efficiently with your team. First and foremost is take care of yourself. So communicate regularly with fellow BNI members. This is a time where you can actually connect with your peers at BNI. And this is one of the first things we did at the Champions chapter, is as business owners, we put out our problems within the group, and we discovered that other business owners also have similar problems and they're going through similar journeys, and together solutions can be found. So that's something that consistently needs to be maintained, because that is your support group as a leader. Next. Second is educate yourself. Go ahead. And this means being responsible, going beyond just watching the TV news and not getting sucked into the melodrama that characterizes the media. What happens is when we take on the melodrama, then we tend to project that melodrama onto your team members. What you take on and communicate is things that you can control. You don't take on things that you cannot control and stuff that actually can lead to speculation. So try and avoid that. Educate yourself about the crisis as it is now. Be authentic. Always remember that people have come to trust and follow you. Tap into your natural persona to create calm and focus. One important thing to remember is during a crisis, people like to see the familiar. So this is not a great time to change your style. Be what you've always been. Keep people comfortable with what they're seeing about you. Communicate clearly with everyone, and that means everyone, right from potentially your driver all the way to your key managers. And remember, how and what you communicate are equally important. So include both logical and empathetic statements in all communications, right? So now I have an option today when my team is remote working, I have an option to tell them, guys, we need to finish this job by the end of the day because the client has to make his payments. And if we don't get his payments, we cannot pay the salaries in full at the end of the month. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is, guys, yes, we do need to pay the salaries at the end of the month. We do need to finish this. Is there a way that if you have a problem, can the team get together, jump in and make things happen, because we are in it together. And that's one of the key words here, right? Convey to everyone that we will do our best to get us through this. So it's a very collective, inclusive statement rather than you taking responsibility for everything. Yes, and you're not expected to have all the answers. At this time, even nations don't have all the answers. So that's okay. So even as business owners, if you don't have all the answers, that's fine. But as soon as you make a decision that can change the lives of your employees, communicate that as soon as you can. Explain why you've taken certain decisions, because that could impact their lives. And it is only fair that we give our employees the opportunity to reorient themselves very quickly to the decisions that you're making, because they sometimes very often depend on you. Always demonstrate on a daily basis that you're looking to the future with a long-term approach. Even if you find a small opportunity to kind of define or express the fact that you're actually looking beyond the future, beyond today's crisis, try and use an opportunity, every opportunity that you can, to convey to your employees that, you know what, it's not just about today, it's about tomorrow. Next is stay with the facts. Whenever colleagues panic, respond with fact-based problem-solving approaches. Share what is known. If you don't know it, acknowledge that you don't know. Keep messaging actionable and avoid perpetuating fear through any kind of alarming language. And that's something that you would hear from Amit, you would hear from me, and from Pradeep as well in the next presentation. Go ahead. Try and establish trust and foster resilience. So if there is an employee who calls in sick, this is not the time to look at the number of sick leaves the person has taken. Trust that person. If they have a problem working from home, acknowledge that. Ask for solutions that the team can provide. It is extremely important to acknowledge emotional and mental health at this time. It is a business activity. It is not an HR activity. It is a business activity. So even if it's uncomfortable, please don't skip that. Prepare your people, especially if you're in a larger organization. Share all relevant information with your team to support extreme transparency. So I'll give you an example here. We have a client in India who is one of the leaders in supply chain. They have over 3,000 people, and right from drivers to senior managers to consultants, etc. 3,000 people. At this time, we have 12 senior managers who are updated with key messages all the time. So they have an FAQ. At any time there's a question from any of these people, they're able to answer it. If they're not able to answer it, the question immediately goes into a pool where there is information that is provided, which can be shared by other managers as well. Go ahead. So crucial to internal communications is actually creating a feedback channel so that people can express themselves and ask questions. Assign authority. Always employees want to hear from an executive so that they feel secure and safe at work. So they need a figurehead. In an organization which is larger, determine which leader will be responsible for communicating with employees regularly. In a smaller company, it may be the owner who takes this role. In a larger one, the head of HR is probably the right leader. So you need to define who that leader is, who that figurehead is, so that people can associate that and follow leadership with authority. So here's the opportunity, right? So if you navigate now, you really have the opportunity to benefit later. So keep your people at the center. Remind yourself of the organization's humanity. This is your opportunity to create your organizations or reorient your organizations as human-centric. If you invest in internal communications today, the way that has been described, you will 100% earn the trust, respect, and loyalty of your employees for the future. So quickly, these are some of the key takeaways from my presentation. Number one is take care of yourself, utilize BNI, educate yourself on the crisis, be authentic, don't change your style, communicate clearly with everyone in your team, right from your driver to your managers. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know when you don't know. Stay with the facts always. Establish trust and foster resilience within your team members. Prepare your line managers to be able to handle communications. Assign responsibility for leadership. And if you navigate now, you benefit later. So there is this very amazing statement. It says, crisis does not build character, it reveals it. Now here's the opportunity, guys. More than anything else, this crisis gives you the opportunity to look at your own leadership style and evaluate it. This is the moment of truth. You can build leadership around fear. You can build leadership around performance. You can build leadership around fancy corporate principles. But if you have the opportunity, consider building it around empathy. When you build that kind of leadership, authority is something that comes very, very seamlessly. So that's the opportunity, leadership. Thank you guys, and sail safe.
Thank you, Ramesh. Very interesting that internal communications is very much a part of everything that we do. So thank you very much for that insight. So I'd like to request the audience that the Q&A bar is available at the bottom of your screen. Please type in any questions for Ramesh. Just mention his name so that he can pick that up at the end of the session and answer them for you. I'll also encourage and request attendees to please refrain from putting general comments on the Q&A bar because that's solely available for questions. Thank you very much if all of you can please adhere to that. So we'll move now on to our next speaker, and I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to Pradeep Kumar. Pradeep Kumar is Director of Public Relations at Watermelons, PR. Pradeep is a communications professional with nearly 2 decades of experience in public relations and journalism. He has proven a track record of helping adventurous individuals and corporations navigate dynamic change and fearlessly discover global opportunities. A passionate team player, Pradeep works and learns alongside business owners, policymakers, and organizations to build long-term value for their initiatives. Pradeep, as I said earlier, heads Watermelon PR, a boutique public relations agency with offices in Dubai and Doha. Watermelon has executed projects across the Middle East, the Europe region, and Asia. And he, as I said earlier, has a master's in communication degree and a diploma in business management. He's a President's Scout, and this is the highest national honor in the Scout movement. So well done, Pradeep. And he has been a member of BNI since October 2016 and a member of BNI Champions. He's also an ambassador to the Rising Phoenix chapter, and he's on the panel of facilitators for key skills workshops in BNI UAE. So over to you, Pradeep, to provide your insights to today's sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Roshan. Thank you. Good morning, BNI. You heard two brilliant minds speak this morning about how and what to communicate. My talk takes a slightly different tangent. Said that, I will reiterate on some of the things mentioned here already this morning. As you can see, my topic is how not to communicate during a crisis. Before we move there, let us try to understand the word crisis itself. The word's origins is said to be from the Greek word krisis, meaning decision. It would be safe to say that when in crisis, it's time to decide. Think about it. A crisis could be a simple situation as your car having a flat tire in the morning. You need to decide on your commute to work. Would it be a taxi? Or should you hitch a ride with your neighbor? Or probably request a colleague to pick you up? Another situation. Your child missed the school bus. Crisis mode. You need to decide on how to get your child dropped to school. It is the morning time now, and I thought many of you can relate to such crisis. In a business setup, when in crisis, you make decisions as well. Sometimes these decisions are not as easy as deciding to choose between a taxi and a neighbor's car. Importantly, in your business, you need to communicate your decisions to all your stakeholders. And that sometimes is not an easy task. Next slide, please. So who are your stakeholders? While in the COVID times, your employees are the focus, your stakeholders are beyond them. Your customers, suppliers, banks, and even the community at large are your stakeholders. As you can see from that list, not all stakeholders are equal. It is for you to prioritize your communication between the various stakeholders. Next slide, please. Before we get on to the communications part, I want you to look at this graph. This is the Kubler-Ross model, commonly known as the stages of grief. This was first introduced by Swiss-American psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her 1969 book on death and dying. Some of you must be familiar with this illustration. The curve originally applied to people suffering from terminal illness. Later, it was extended to any form of catastrophic personal loss, be it jobs, incomes, business, tragedies, and disasters. Kubler-Ross claimed these steps do not necessarily come in the order as shown in the graph, nor are all stages experienced by everyone. Have a closer look at the graph and you will agree that this is how we face a crisis. The curve begins with the shock stage. There is a sense of fear in this stage. Probably many of us were in this stage when UAE announced its first COVID-19 case in January this year. The question on our minds then was, what next? The next stage is denial. Resentment and disappointment are factors in this stage. Our thoughts in this stage are, I don't think this would last long. Things should get back to normal soon. After denial, it's frustration. Walk in mid-February, some of us got into this mode, realizing that it is real and recognizing that things are happening. We felt anger and disgust. Then comes the depression stage. The thoughts in our mind were, my business is doomed. Why COVID? Why me? Why now? In this stage, we felt unfair and powerlessness. Next is the experiment stage. While in this stage, we started accepting the situation and said to ourselves that we need to adapt. We started to work from home. We moved our BNI meetings to BNI online. We got used to Zoom meetings. What we needed here was motivation and curiosity. Next is the decision stage. We accepted the new reality. We learned how to work with the new situation. What we are now more positive than we were a month ago, probably. The questions were, what's next for me and my business? What are my choices? And what am I going to do about it? We started taking control of the situation here. And the last stage of the curve is integration. There is a possibility that few of us are already here. Others are getting there. Hold on. The thought is, how can I make things happen? We look out for new paradigms. We now have the confidence to move forward. We have a changed mindset. So ladies and gentlemen, that's the Kubler-Ross curve. Hands over your heart. You need to go back, Samarth. Hands over your heart, and we will all agree that we have gone through these phases in the last 90 days or so. Some of us have experienced all these stages, while some few. And some others, none of these. So why am I discussing this today? Simple. Hold on to all communications with your stakeholders until you're past the depression stage. Until then, there is no clarity of thoughts and direction. You are lost and seeking answers yourselves. Most communication made during such times will be directionless and will only lead to confusion and more confusion. This does not bode well for you or your business. Once you started taking decisions, what are the don'ts of communication during a crisis? Next slide, please. Thank you. The first, don't forget empathy and care. This needs to be stressed, bold, and underlined. Both Amit and Ramesh, our earlier speakers this morning, mentioned this. An expression of empathy is a necessary first step in demonstrating a commitment to fulfill any expectation. One of the things that I find most helpful during a crisis is a statement that begins with an acknowledgement of people's anxieties, fears, or uncertainty. When you do that first, the communication tends to work reasonably well. When you say, we are in it together, mean it. Express it, show it. Most times, just listening to people about their anxieties, their fear, and suggestions is job half done in terms of communication. Next slide, please. While you need to show empathy and care, do not forget to exercise authority. To feel confident, to act on your recommendations and direction, your team must trust you. The more we trust the people who are supposed to protect or inform us, the less afraid we will be. The less we trust them, the greater are our fears. To build trust, we must manage expectations and communicate openly, honestly, and often. Research shows that speaking with a low-pitched voice, for example, expresses power and appears more competent. Part of building trust is being perceived as competent. During the current times, authority could also be educating your teams on the best ways to take care of themselves and others. This can be done in your regular meetings, team huddles, or even in workplace WhatsApp groups. Provide verified information. I'm sure you would agree that, you need to go back, Samarth, thank you. I'm sure you would agree that every uncle and his aunt is a COVID expert today. Going by the WhatsApp forward messages we receive daily about this disease, we know this for sure. One thing that is spreading faster than the coronavirus are the fake news around it. As a leader, do not fall for them. Ensure you're passing your team verified information. Do that a couple of times and you will notice how people will come back to you to verify the information they receive from other sources. Panic and crisis go in hand. Next slide, please. So much that sometimes we use the words interchangeably. The rule is simple. Try not to communicate while in this mode. Try not to create unnecessary fear. Panic can undo many positive steps made during a crisis. Next slide, please. Practice what you preach. This is easy, isn't it? You cannot communicate about cost cuts in your business one day and purchase a swanky new car for yourself the next day. That does not work. You can be sure that anything you say about your business to your stakeholders then on will only fall to deaf ears. Next slide, please. In times such as the present one, we are always on the lookout for guidance as far as our business is concerned. Should I announce that salary cut from April or May? Should I ask my employees to go on unpaid leave? We are looking at our competitors, associates, and even our neighbors in some cases to make the first move. The truth is that there is little guidance available. Do what the others are doing may not always be a good strategy. Only you understand your concerns. You are the best person to gauge the gravity of the issues of your business. Remember, your competitors' business decisions are made in the best interest of their business, not yours. Next slide, please. Do not play ostrich. You are in a crisis. Accept it and act on it. Burying its head in the sand may help the ostrich to stay away from a situation, not us. Businesses are often paralyzed by non-communication. Your stakeholders will fill in the blanks if you don't. Let that not happen. Next slide, please. The last of do nots. Ask for help. Ask for help if you face trouble communicating to any of your stakeholders. Lawyers, crisis communication specialists. Get their guidance if need be. Next slide, please. I will end this presentation on a philosophical note. Crisis can be a unique opportunity to change your path, to explore new opportunities, to help you become the person you were meant to be. I do not know who said this, but I thought it is relevant for today's times. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pradeep. That was a great session indeed. So we have concluded with our three panelists, and now what we're going to do is take on questions that will be moderated by Reem. But before we do that, I would also remind you again to please type in your Q&As in the Q&A box that you would see at the bottom of your screens, and I'll give you a few seconds to type in any questions that you might have for Pradeep. So please address those questions to Pradeep directly, and that will be taken right after this. Great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Reem, who will moderate the Q&A sessions for all of us. And even during the Q&A sessions that would be in progress, don't worry, you can still put in your questions and the panelists will answer. Just again, a reminder, please mention the name of the panelist you would want that question answered from. So here you go, over to you, Reem. Thank you.
Good morning, BNI. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning, and we've heard three excellent speakers. Thank you to Amit, Ramesh, and Pradeep. I'm going to get straight into the Q&A. One thing we've heard all three of them talk about is the importance of authenticity and your authentic voice. And the first question is from Hemant Mandura to Amit. He's asking about the H acronym that you mentioned. How important is it to still be creative when you share that? As you shared the Emirates airline ad, they were clearly very creative. Where is the balance between the hope and the creativity?
Thank you, and thanks once again for putting this question forward. The H acronym tells you the important things you need to look at in your communication. These words are very, very critical, and these words are the only words which should describe your business. They are the kind of words which will describe your business. Honest, helpful, because you're going to solve some issue. You're going to create hope that if you do this, you're going to get this. These are the words if you give in your communication, because this is what people are looking for. I made this H in acronym because we're talking about staying at home, staying away from the hospital. There's a lot of this H which keep coming to my mind. So I said, this is a very creative way of putting this thing forward. And I realized that in communication, if you have all this H element, which actually is being taken from a creative edge to a creative edge, just for the people to remember with ease. And if you take these words forward in your communication, it will make it more effective during this time. It is not the time to scare, it is the time to make it happy, hopeful, healthy, and happening.
Okay, but building on that, we've actually had a question from Ameya. He says, but are there any don'ts in your communication? We've talked about all the do's. I know Pradeep touched on some don'ts, but in your situation, Amit, are there any don'ts whilst you're being happy and optimistic?
Yes, don't try to scare people saying if you don't do this, this is going to happen. So it's always stay positive, because there was a time people would say, if you don't do this, this is a possibility, and try to scare people to get into this. Don't try to scare. There's already enough and more scare in the market. That's why I said, please remember the H factor. This is what people want to listen. So don't scare. Don't try to threaten. Even in your internal communication, even in your communication with your client, even if you're not getting paid, try not to threaten, because this is a time if you threaten, people may just raise their hands and say, I can't, then what? So don't threaten. Even your customer, your employee, anybody who's not paying up, it is not the time to threaten. If you threaten, they can give up, and people are supporting people who want to give up. This is the time where they can give up easily. Look, I can't do it. Do what you want. Right? Thank you.
Interesting that you mentioned payment there, because part of communication is also following up with your clients and contacts on payment. And we did have a question emailed in from Jitin in Early Birds, who said, how do you follow up on payment in the current situation? I'm going to address that to Ramesh, because he did mention in his presentation that you don't have to have all the answers. But Ramesh, if you can give any advice on that.
So I'll talk about my own organization, right? I have this man who's my account manager, and I call him the pest. So he has no illusions about or reservations about contacting our clients and pestering them for payments. So he calls in the morning, he calls in the afternoon, he calls in the evening, and then when they tell him to stay off, he waits for a day, he comes back and continues. So the point here is, at this time, especially when it comes to payments, you have to stay on top of mind. I mean, there is no other choice. In any given situation, there are probably 5 or 10 other creditors who are actually expecting payments from the same client that you're looking at. So constantly staying in touch with the right person on the other side, through calls as far as possible, through emails, through SMS, essentially keeping you on top of mind is the only way forward in this case. So, and put somebody specifically for that task. If it's not somebody that you have within your organization do that, then you have to do it yourself.
I actually agree with that, Ramesh. That's something that helps anyone who isn't comfortable with those conversations. Put someone else who is in that situation. I'm going to stay with you, Ramesh. Tony, building on that, Tony Ibrahim has asked, how can he make sure he's making the right steps and decisions for his business right now? How do you know you're making the right decisions?
Tony, is that right?
Yes, Tony.
Tony, I don't have an answer to that one because that's a business decision, right? The decisions, number one is any decision that you're making right now, you have to evaluate it two ways. One is it good for your business right now? Number two, is it good for your employees right now? The important thing to see is this is only today. It's going to take a couple of months before this gets over, but the decisions that you take today, does it have an impact on the future of your business? And where is that business going to go in the future, right? So at this time, if I was in your position, I wouldn't beat myself to death every morning thinking, am I taking the right decisions? I would take it day by day. There's a lesson every day for us. So take it day by day. We don't have all the answers. Like I said, we have a destination that we're heading to. We're literally navigating through this at this time, but take it easy. And I'm sure the decisions you take will bear fruit in the future.
So Ramesh, before I move on to Pradeep, we've actually had Wendy respond to your comment about chasing payments. And she interestingly asks, do you believe that the squeaky wheel gets oil? Should we keep squeaking? So my guess is she means when is enough enough, or do you just keep going, or when do you know when it's time to stop?
So thank you, Wendy, for that one. So the squeaky wheel works for me. It depends on the kind of clients that you have. But like I said, I put the squeaky little character in between me and the client so that he can push it to a point, and when he can't do that anymore, that's when I come in. So at this time, do everything that you can to get your payments, everything as in terms of communications. And yes, this Mr. Squeaky really works for me. So that's my experience.
Mr. Squeaky works for him. Takeaway. Okay, over to Pradeep now. We've had a question from Hari Haran, apologies if I'm mispronouncing, from BNI Tritons. And he's asked, how important is it for him to communicate during this crisis, to have an actual business response to COVID-19? Pradeep, if you can share your thoughts about the importance of communicating right now.
Yeah, thank you, Reem. It's very simple. Put it other way around. What if you don't communicate during this crisis? What happens? Right? With all the, with what you hear around and how businesses are performing, if you don't communicate with your stakeholders, this could be your customers, this could be your, larger stakeholders as well, is that people probably will forget you. Right? So it is important to communicate. Communication, like Amit said in his presentation, is the way forward. Your platforms could change. Today, it could be you're communicating through your mails. It could be your, probably even going as low as say even a newsletter, for example. But if you stop all that, your stakeholders probably will think that you don't even exist. So in crisis, you need to communicate and communicate more effectively. So that's the key. The answer is simple. Think what will happen if you don't communicate. And I think you get your responses there. I hope that answers.
Absolutely. And interestingly, talking about staying in communication, we've had the same question twice, both by email from, I think it's Hemant from Gladiators, and now from Sebi. Which mode of communication do you recommend the most? We know we need to keep communicating, but what is your recommendation for the medium? I'm staying with Pradeep, but I'll get Amit and Ramesh's opinion as well.
I think, great question. The answer is continue using those channels that you were comfortable with, that you have been using. Because if you try something new now, then do you have the bandwidth to actually promote that new channel? For example, if you are not on social media now, right, and you suddenly come into social media, how will you promote those handles? It might take some time. So it depends on what your content is and what you want to communicate. You can choose those channels accordingly. My first response to this is continue using those channels that you have used traditionally to communicate with your various stakeholders. Thank you.
Okay, and then what about communicating to employees? So you mentioned something which I thought was very interesting in terms of the Kubler-Ross curve, which is to only start communicating after you've gone through the various phases. Does that apply communicating internally as well, or was it purely external?
No, so that the curve I brought in there was to find individually where we all stand, right? And the curve is only, to put probably perspectives in place. As much as we've gone through those curves, let's also understand our employees or anyone in our stakeholders. I mean, all of them probably would have gone through the same curve as well. With your employees, you need to keep that communication going at every stage. I mean, that's as simple as possible. If my team do not hear from me, once in 24 hours, there is a blank, and I don't want those blanks to be filled by my employees. So that communication needs to be open. But again, communicate what you know. Don't speculate. I mean, if you have made a decision firmly, for example, that the salary cuts will start from May, communicate. But if you're still half-heartedly thinking about it, should I do it, don't do it then, right? So once you made those firm decisions, especially with your employees, tell them. Don't give half-hearted decisions to them, because that will lead only to more confusion.
Okay. So going back to the communication mediums, I realized I didn't actually get Amit and Ramesh's opinion. But Amit, a question you've all received from Tony again is: do you think we'll still have print ads once we come out of the situation we're in? What percentage do you think will still be active with print ads?
Yes, this is very relevant, and as we see, print is coming down, as we're seeing everywhere, even in our in UAE. If you see the newspapers, they're shrinking in size. The magazines are getting back into the newspaper. Means we used to have magazines here like Young Times, Weekend. They're no longer coming. Yes, print is shrinking, but print will always have its place. Print we used to call it the newspaper. The news would come when the paper would come early morning, and they would print the paper by late night, as late as possible, so they would bring you the news at the earliest. Things have changed. Now, news comes on WhatsApp first, then it comes on TV, and then next day it is on the newspaper. But when it comes in the newspaper, once it comes in the WhatsApp, you always are doubtful whether it is true or not. When the TV announces, you give it a little twist that maybe it is over exaggeration and all, but you still verify with the newspaper, because that is an official way of communication. As of now, I would suggest print is going to stay. The form will change. The announcement media may not still be that, because news breaks up much faster in other media. So it's no longer a newspaper, but yes, it will keep its place for some more time, and it would be an official media of communication. Today, if you're getting divorced, if somebody is sick, somebody dies, and if you're selling your company, you still have to put your mandatory notices on the newspaper. So it will continue, and it will continue for some time. And even if you see that now, the grocery ads, as I was talking about, they are like leaflets which are thrown around in every house, and you're not allowed to throw around leaflets in every house. So newspaper is the only way where you can reach the leaflet to every house. So the form will change. We'll see how it evolves. Yes, it's diminished. If newspaper used to have a weightage of 100, it now has a weightage of 30 in your communication, because digital media, online, a lot of them have taken their share, and we've seen the drop from our clients also asking for newspaper. But yes, it holds value for some things still, though the percentages would be very, very low now. It would be 20-30% of your communication would be through print media.
Very interesting. 20 to 30%. That's quite a drop. I know Ramesh has some comments on that. So Ramesh, if you can share.
Yeah, I think it's important also to acknowledge, right, that communications, the purpose of communications is to support a particular business activity or engagement. Through this crisis, what we're seeing is businesses are changing. The way that we do business is changing. The way that we our whole business model is changing internally and externally. So once that undergoes change, you're probably going to see a new line of or new type of communications that's going to emerge, even in terms of the channels that is going to carry that communication. So you're going to see communications at the end of this that is more personalized, something that's more permissive, something that's more engaging. So the way communications is going to be designed and put out there is definitely going to change as businesses change after this crisis. That's it, Reem.
So Ramesh, I'm going to stick with you. We've actually had a question from Jamil Azuri following on that, just asking, you know, we've just talked about the fact that newspapers don't have as strong a circulation, but for those who maybe haven't used social media channels to communicate, is now a good idea to suddenly launch themselves on those channels, or should they be starting slowly, gradually? I know we had the tip earlier from Pradeep about not, you know, starting something new and continuing to communicate the way you always have. But Jamil is wondering, is now the right time to start promoting yourself on social media as a result?
It certainly is, right? I mean, and if you look at social media, I mean, going back to Pradeep's comment, he's right. You suddenly get in here into that game. There's a lot that you have to do to promote yourself. But there is a way that you can use social media now. If you're going to go there and put up your services, nobody's going to listen to you. In fact, it's going to be quite distasteful to actually do that at this time. But there are conversations going on. If you can tap into those conversations, reorient your business around those kind of conversations, appeal, put out information to people that they can use on social media, yes, they will listen to you. And this is a great time to build communities and build relationships. It is not a great time on social to try and flog your business. So that's the best way that you can use social right now. And yes, you should be there. Take this opportunity to get there. You have time, do it now. But put content that is relevant and reach communities that are relevant to you.
So I think I agree with you. I think it's very important to be out there and providing value. But Kapil Matter is asking, what about the frequency of communication? Because he doesn't want to come across too pushy and aggressive. So where's the balance with that? How often should you be communicating? That's to Ramesh, please.
Okay. So that's a technical issue, right? I mean, so you need to look into your chapter and see if there is a social media advisor to advise on these kind of things. There are certain patterns in terms of frequency that you should be maintaining, but those patterns are also dependent on the kind of content that you have. So you need technical assistance over there. And if you don't have a social advisor in your chapter, the Champions has one.
Fabulous plug there. I think you'll find many chapters have one, but moving on. Madhur, you said that, is it viable to approach new prospects, new customers during this time? Or should you focus on your existing customers? You know, what are the strategies to generate new leads at the moment? I'm going to ask all three of you. Let's start with Pradeep.
Well, why not? You are in the business. Well, while it is important to concentrate and give your best efforts to your existing clients, you're always on the lookout for new customers, right? Irrespective of the business. And that's why we are in the business, to grow. And growth will happen through new acquisition of customers. I think Amit put this in his presentation. There is a crisis mode, but things are moving. It probably is not moving in the same pace what it was earlier, but things are moving. So there would be new customers. Probably in my business, it might take maybe 2 times longer period than somebody else's, but things are moving. Think of these e-commerce companies, for example. I mean, I'm sure in the last 2-3 weeks, you've seen a lot of new names pop up on your Facebook screens. You've not heard of them before. You'd be surprised that many of them actually existed before. It's that we've not paid attention, right? The fact that you have seen them is that you are probably a potential customer for them, right? So this is also the time to look out for those new customers as well. Who knows? They probably are looking at a new vendor as much as you're looking for a new customer. Thank you.
Okay. Ramesh, do you have anything to add on that in terms of actually trying to get new customers right now?
Yeah, so new customers is definitely something that is going to happen, because as the market opens, there's going to be a lot of competition between clients and everybody to get new customers, right? Because the rebound is going to be very, very aggressive. So be prepared for that. And in terms of your digital capabilities or your digital assets, build on them now during this time to ensure that when people are looking for your services, you're found there. That's one. The second is go deeper into the existing clients that you have. And this is an opportunity to go and build very, very strong relationships. Every recession has created opportunities for small and medium-sized companies. This is where you actually build relationships with the key people who matter on the client side, right? So this is the time when you don't become a supplier, you become a partner to them. So if you build these relationships now deeply, you can really benefit from it once we get over this situation. That's it.
And Amit, for you at Prism, are you actually spending more of your time building relationships with your current customers, or are you going out there and looking for new customers? Where do you feel the balance of time should be spent?
I would say if you have active customers, give them time, because a bird in hand is better than a couple of them in the bush. So yes, but at the same time, this is a time to approach a lot of people differently. Change is the way, and I've talked to a lot of business people, and they're saying, when I tell them it's tough time, they're saying it is opportunity. Most of them say it is opportunity, and all of us have talked about it. Not only new customers, you should evolve with new products. We are going ahead in Prism. If you talk about it, we are spending 30–40% of time for new customers, and the rest of the 60% of time with old customers, because out of the old customers, some are active, some are not active. But those who are active are very active. So my design team is focused in servicing the old customers with a couple of people, and there is a special team just working on new clients and new products, not only new clients. I know of companies, I worked as a head of marketing in a perfume company, a very big perfume company, and suddenly they have deployed all their lines of body fresheners, these deodorants, and they've converted their lines to sanitizers. I know of a member in our BNI community. They have a brewery, and they've converted the brewery into sanitization business. So it's the time to evolve. Times are changing, to change with the times, and there are new products which are very relevant. And even now, Reem, probably you're going to do a lot more webinars now with people coming on board. That is something which is like bounced back. Games, online games, engaging people. I told you about ARN, the radio station. They are having something every 5–10 days. So firstly, I was invited for an event online with the radio. Then yesterday we had a movie night with the radio where they sent popcorns, things like that to my house. And the RJs went live, and there was music and there was quiz. It was amazing. And then once these get popular, there'll be advertising. Correct. Vox would have sponsored the whole event. Now they're going to advertise. So once you have a popular show, this is the time, I would say what is built during these times would be the strongest. So when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Not only new clients, go for new products.
I like that. So it's not just the new clients, 30 to 40% of his time is what Amit is spending on new clients, but new products, because it's time to evolve, which is great. And Jamal from BNI Tritons, he wants to know, great, you've done all these new products, you've got these new services, but how are customers going to behave after COVID? So do you think they'll still be as receptive? So still with Amit, if you can respond, and we'll ask the others as well.
Can you give me the question again, Reem?
How do you think customers are going to respond? So it's all well and good to have new products in the market, but after this phase, will customers still be buying?
Yes. Now, do you think the sanitizers will go out of fashion? Suddenly it's come into fashion. Maybe the use may not be so much, but sanitizers will still stay because people have realized the importance of sanitizers. I had people who are saying now, even if I travel after things open up, I will definitely wear a mask and carry a sanitizer, because you don't know what's going to happen next. So things are going to, yeah, the panic for sanitizers may go, but sanitizers will stay. If the webinars become so important, maybe now the rush for webinars where every company is doing 3 a day or 2 a day may go, but webinars will become the way of life. Zoom meetings will become a way of life. As Reem was saying, that somebody was saying there were so many, Pradeep was saying that there were so many online companies which have probably not been seen before are seen now. I don't think how many of us probably knew Zoom. Out of the 500 BNI members or 600 BNI members now, we didn't know Zoom. But do you think Zoom is going to stay after this? Yes, it's going to stay. It may not be so aggressive. It may tailor down, but it will become a way of life.
Yeah. So yeah, Pradeep, what are your comments on how customers are now going to behave? And I might add on to that Rahul Gehani has said he understands the human connection is what defines you and generates engagement. So how do you recommend that that we start engaging with people? What kind of day-to-day activities as part of reaching those customers?
Well, yeah, I will actually add on to what Amit said. When we are in a new normal. The normal that we are going to enter is not the same normal that we left behind in March, right? When this stay-at-home started. What is that new normal? We do not know. But the truth is, we are all part of that evolving new normal, and we are sitting that new normal, right? For example, Amit talked about webinars. A lot of events are actually now moving into webinars. You wouldn't believe, for example, if there could be a medical conference where you would have, say, probably 300 doctors coming down staying in a hotel room for 3 days and running a CME program. Now that can be done over 4 hours on a Zoom. So, and probably that's the way forward. Lower costs, right? So every industry will see that new normal. I'm not an industry expert here, but that is going to be the new norm. I think what is going to stay, for example, in my industry, whatever the platforms are. So today you probably have Gulf News and Khaleej Times. The new normal could be a gulfnews.com or a khaleejtimes.com. We will still go back to them to verify news. You hear a lot of rumors. Each time you go back to these websites to check, have they announced it? Are they talking about it? Right? And that's how we actually validate. In my business, Amit put it right, content will be the king. Now, I don't know what that new normal would be. Would it be, like I said earlier, would it be the newspaper, or would it be just the websites, or would it be just influencers, right? So that's the first part of your question. In terms of human engagement, what Rahul asked, I think human engagement is important with most of our communications, not just in today's times as well, right? I need to reiterate the same thing. Content is the king. So what you think is important for you to talk about, if you have some human engagement to it, it will help. I always talk about this example of life insurance ads. Irrespective of whichever insurance company it is around the world, the first thing that they would say is that you're going to die, right? And what will happen to your family after that? And after that, they will show you a series of images and motion pictures to say you led a happy life if you bought this insurance, right? So the human connect is actually your death more than your happiness. The fear comes into you, and that's how you actually sell. And that's what happens in today's communication as well. I think both Ramesh and Amit mentioned earlier as well. You need to be truthful to what you're saying, right? You could have any level of human engagement. You could say the best of the best things, but if you don't mean it, if your company's products and services don't act on those promises, any communication will not hold good.
So I know, Ramesh, you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, I think Pradeep said that very eloquently. He addressed Rahul's question, right? But I'm coming back to the first question, which is, will customers buy at the end of this? So we must understand that you, me, and everybody else is going through a huge emotional trauma at this time, right? When this is over, it's like chickens being released, right, from the coop. Emotions are going to be released. People want to travel, people want to buy, people want to satisfy all the emotional cravings that have been limited during this time of the crisis. So emotions are a key driver for buying any kind of service or product. And that's something that advertisers will take advantage of. And that is what services also need to consider. If you're creating any products now that have a high emotional quotient, it's going to be an amazing time when this gets over and people start going to the shops, buying services in the future. Thanks.
So Ramesh, I'm going to stay with you. We have a question from Hasnain Ahmed. He's saying that right now, is it not a time for selflessness and cash is king? So we've been talking a lot about the customer, but should we be thinking more about ourselves?
That's a choice you have to make, Hasnain. Do you want to think how long is your business going to last, right? Is it going to create a legacy, or is it going to be something that's just going to tide you over at this time? It has, for me and for most of us over here at BNI, we've joined this organization or this network because we see a future for our people and for ourselves, right? So yes, there is a certain level of selfishness that has to be maintained at this time. But when I talk to my guys, the first thing I told them, my employees, the first thing I told them is, it's a time for survival, guys. And we're going to survive through this. It's not about making money, but all of us can survive. And it takes, honestly, if you look at how much money you've spent the last 1 month, personally, you are surprised, right? I mean, you spent very, very little and actually need very little to survive. So that's the point of this time. So be selfish enough to survive. That's all. But in the end, you have to take care of your people and you have to take care of your organization so it moves into the next level after the crisis is over. And it will get over.
Be selfish enough to survive. So that's an interesting takeaway. I'm going to stay with you, Ramesh. Yvonne has asked a question in the same sphere. If you're owed a lot of money by a company and they state that they're not going to start making any payments to your company until the end of September, do you continue working for them or not? They've stated that her company must continue on the project. So I guess she's looking for some advice on what you would do in that situation.
So I have a similar situation, right? I have one of my largest clients who has started trying to negotiate the next year's contract based on the situation right now. So yes, and there is money owed there as well. But here is the thing, right? What do you want to maintain? How much do you have to lose? When you take the decision and say, no, I'm not going to work for you guys until you pay me the money, and they go out of sight, is that something that you can live with? Or do you want to negotiate this to the end, constantly build relationships with the people that matter, make yourself important to them, and use this time to build that relationship? So this is really a question that you need to ask yourself. And at the end of the day, are you going to be happy with the decision? Can you sleep with the decisions that you've taken? That's the most important thing. There has been a time in the last crisis in the 2008, 2009, where I lost a lot of money with a particular client, right? But there was a day when I decided, this is it. I cannot continue to work without that guy actually paying for it. I took the decision not to work the next day. I lost a lot of money, but I've never regretted that. So that's a personal choice.
It's a personal choice. And similar question, but addressed to Amit, this time from Naveen. He said, don't threaten clients for payment, is something you mentioned earlier, Amit. Naveen is asking, they don't do that. But again, if a client has a huge outstanding amount, what's the solution? What do you do? Do you keep working? Do you stop? What would you do, Amit?
Communicate, follow up, send them nice mails, send them blessings. The whole consciousness is going to evolve. That's what you can do. See, threatening will get you nowhere. That's why I'm saying, any message is saying, if you don't do this, I will do this. Where will it lead you? It won't lead you anywhere. It may stop a relationship. It may stop the payment forever. Yes, if you communicate in the human, hopeful, healthy, hygienic way, when you keep saying, please help, and we will be continuing our support to you, yes, that's the way to communicate. But yes, communication has to go on. Don't stop communicating. Send them 3 different kinds of messages, one WhatsApp, one email, one call, then again start again. Keep communicating. Tell them your situation in life. Ask them for help. If you ask them for help, you will be helped. If you threaten them, you may be left out. That's what I want to say.
Ask them for help. I think that's very key. Remember to ask. A question for Pradeep. We've got Shahab Ahmed, who says he has a tailoring business, which is currently in lockdown. So his customers are afraid to approach him. What are the solutions to maybe get customers back in? What could he possibly look at doing?
Probably, Amit probably could answer this better since he's the content guy here in terms of marketing. The first thing is, if your business is open, try reaching out to your customers with, happy messages. Tell them what you're doing. Tell them about the hygiene standards that you set for yourself and your employees. Tell them about some of the customers who actually some of the things that you're actually doing right now for your existing customers, if at all you are doing anything. Give them messages that are more pragmatic, what you're doing, and in terms of ensuring that the customers coming back to you, you are more than happy to serve them, right? And that will come only through reassurance. And the reassurance at this stage will come with hopeful messages. Secondly, also with messages that are setting the trend for today. So, for example, being hygiene, increasing those hygienic standards, talking about temperature control, for example, for your employees. And you see that happening. For example, if you go to a supermarket today, there is a person actually looking at taking your temperature. I've never understood what that meant. Meaning, I could actually drive to that place, have couple of Panadols and just walk in. It will still show me normal, right? Don't quote me outside on this, but it works. At least you are reassured that there is some mechanism in place. And once you get that, you will go back to that place. And that is what you should be doing as well. Amit, probably you need to add something here.
Yep, Amit, please let us know what you would advise the tailoring company.
Yes, tailoring company is still very hygienic. When we're talking food being delivered, it is actually being cooked and delivered, and it's being done. So we realized during this period that physical space is no longer an office or a shop. Business can go on without physical space. So even if you have customers not visiting your shop, they can still visit you. And probably that's the time you need to look at your model where you can get online or talk to your customers individually. If you have 100 people who come to you for their suits or shirts every now and then, can you talk to them and say, can we do a special thing for you during this time, a different attire, a better attire, which, a lot of people are not using shirts and pants during this time because they're working from home. So can you stitch them a nice thing which they can be wearing at home? Come out with ideas. It is being creative. So one thing for sure, if food can be supplied, tailoring can go on. Now, if they don't want a suit at this time, do they want a more comfortable attire at this time, which you can still sell? Ladies are still up for fashion. If you are a ladies tailor, suggest them some ideas which they can wear at home, which are more comfortable and nice clothing. So it's just change your product offering to adapt to the environment. You can have courier companies are working, delivery companies are working. I was surprised to see that somebody told me, I deliver my stuff through Kareem Cabs. Means you pay the cab guy, he takes your product and he gets you what you want back, maybe payment, maybe anything. So you can send a suit for trial and they can try it and they can say this is where it's going wrong and you can bring it back and correct it. So be in business. Shop is not business. Office is not business. You being there is business. Just adapt to the times and send communication. Start with your own people who come to you regularly. Can you do something better for them? Can you give them an offer that, look, you've been buying suits from me, let me give you something else for this time. I'll make some nice t-shirts, my nice things which will make you look formal and still keep you cool at home, right?
I like that. I like that a lot. Be in business. So no excuses. You can do it. However, on that note, Dheeraj Kiara from BNI Dynamite has had a similar question. He's in the events industry, so he's seen a lot of changes in his business. And following on from that, he's trying to evolve, looking at ways for new income streams. But he's saying, what suggestions do you have if it's actually challenging, if you've had to, the departments have been laid off, or you don't actually have the team in place to come up with those new ideas? So how can you handle that, Amit, if you can continue with that?
If you don't have a team in place, you being a BNI member, you have a huge team in place. I thank BJ and the BNI people to put together so many people. We are all your team. We are all happy to talk to you. There is a special helpline. There are people who are mentors. There are people who are coaches. There are people who are specialists. We are all your team. Firstly, if the team was critical, don't let them go. Don't let the critical people go. You need to decide who are the critical people for you. If people have little work, give them developmental work, give them project work. And if you have let them go due to some certain circumstances, being a member of BNI is like employing a whole team of salespeople, and I would say now a whole team of advisors, consultants for yourself. We are all there. Please share with anybody in your chapter who you feel comfortable with, or any other chapter. We are all BNI members. We are in it together, and we'll get out of it.
I like that whole team of salespeople. I feel I've read that somewhere before, Amit. Just a few comments that have been shared for Shahab and his tailoring business. So thank you, Rashmi, who's mentioned that many tailoring businesses are stitching millions of masks worldwide. So maybe that's something to look into. So thank you for that comment. We also, yes, Mohammed Rafi mentioned exactly the same, facial masks. So new suggestion for you maybe. Amit, I'm going to stick with you for this one as well, because it's on the same theme, which is Omar Khatmi. Medical industry, so medical travel business. He's a member in BNI Genesis. He says his business has also been directly affected by the ban on travel. What should he be doing in terms of marketing during this period?
Omar, I know you well. Thank you, Omar, for this question. I know travel industry is hit. People are not traveling, and especially medical travel, but this would someday be changed, definitely. But even as of now, probably again, I have to get back to you, that probably you need to change the business model. You need to see how you can take people who are locally available to a local destination. As of now, the problem is, even if you are a little sick, you can't get to a doctor and the doctors are too busy, or you don't know when to get to a doctor. I would do this at this time that, okay, you do a global business. Why don't you tailor a local model to it? Local model to it means if I fall down, which is quite a possibility because I'm running up and down my house, and if I break a leg, why can't you come to my rescue and take me to the nearest hospital, or establish a helpline where you can send it around to people, as the global travel is not allowed. But now local travel is also a travel to a doctor. Local travel is also travel to a clinic. Why can't we do something that you tie up with 2-3 doctors or clinics or hospitals, get some people on board and help people locally? So the message which can go out, probably, I don't know if you can take this model from you, could be that if you fall sick and you're scared to go to hospital, which everybody is, can I help you with the doctor's helpline at a cost? Definitely, you need to earn something out of it. So think of a model which can go, and this is the time to probably, that would be the next business for you when everything open up. Also, you can have a doctor helpline, you can have doctors connected, because you are connected to that fraternity any which ways. Because you were getting them customers from a global level, you were trying to get people from Kenya to UAE. Now don't get probably people from Kenya to UAE, get people from Modan to Bardubai.
I like it. Mood on to Dubai. Okay. So we're entering into the last 10 minutes of our Q&A. There are a couple of questions here that I'm sure we will be addressing in future seminars, webinars even. But just to put it out there, Ramesh, your question in relation to keeping employees working remotely accountable. I believe that we will be having HR panels in the future. So thank you. Sorry, that was Meher. Thank you, Meher, for that question. That'll be addressed in the future. We also have some questions related to just employee communication. So again, we're going to save those for future webinars. If anyone wants to add any final questions, please do so in the Q&A, and please mention the person you'd like to address them to. And I'm now going to go to Pradeep. Jamil asking, some businesses' core products are considered luxury, so they're not essential. What do you suggest these luxury businesses do with their communication to stay relevant in the market right now?
Jamil, I'm not too sure about your products. I mean, obviously the answer would, right now, whatever answer I would provide probably shooting in the dark. I don't know the business that you are in. There are luxury businesses still doing well, right? They've moved their services to online. They've started marketing their online business. When you know, even watch brands, I'm told, for example, in Europe, they've moved and a lot of their businesses to e-commerce. And in that sort of business, actually, earlier, a lot of things were done only in person. The person would want to see those products before buying. In the last 2 months, we've seen that change happening, right? So moving online, looking at the online model is probably something that you can actually look at. For example, even facial mask, when I was told, for example, where there are brands in Italy that have actually taken them to the next level. So you probably have a high-end brand which never got into something as common as a facial mask, actually delivering that. So they've also looked at new product lines which are doing well, which people need at the moment. Not necessarily a luxury one, but why not if that's available? So that's the other model that you could actually look at. So first thing, and what comes to my mind right now is try looking at the online model, see if that works, depending on the product line that you actually have. Thank you.
Staying with you, Pradeep, we have a question from Aftab Ahmed. He says, will customers be more frugal in the future? What do you think?
Good question, Aftab. While you ask that question, we also need to remember that we are customers for someone else as well, right? We might be selling something to others. We might be purchasing others' products and services. But at the end of the day, we are also customers to someone. Will we be frugal? Is that on the cards? I talked to about 4 or 5 people, and certainly you will know what the answer is. Again, I do not know your business, but the answer is, what's in us. How we are going to behave in future is probably what others normally would do.
So Aftab has asked a second question to Ramesh this time. He says, the shift of humans is more on developing technological skills rather on developing wisdom. His question is, post the crisis, will everyone realize that they need to develop wisdom and empathy? What are your thoughts, Ramesh?
So Aftab, that's a fantastic question, right? So we see, we all over we are posting pictures of dolphins returning and flamingos returning and, nature's coming back, etc., etc., etc. These are all great moments at this time, but I can guarantee you at the end of this situation, and there is no specific end to the situation, right? It's going to be a process. People are not they're going to forget everything, because the assault that will come from advertising agencies and communicators and clients telling you that, hey, you know what, greed is good, self-perseverance and preservation is good. All these messages will come back at a huge, rapid pace to you. So yes, I think there will be all the wisdom that is learned may be lost, The one thing that we can do is, if we have children at this time, help them understand this process that is happening right now, right? Communicate with them and let them know exactly what is happening, so that when they grow up and face a situation like this, they are in a better situation than we are today, and they can plan ahead. So no, I don't see any wisdom there. Sorry.
Okay. We also have Mala, who's asked, how do you communicate with clients who have put projects on hold due to lockdown? They're afraid you might lose, and obviously she's afraid she might lose those projects. I'll keep that with Ramesh. I know you addressed it slightly earlier, saying it was a personal choice, but do you have anything to add on that topic?
You have no control about, so it's about staying with things that you can control, right? You have no control whether they're going to have those projects, or those projects are actually going to happen. It's a judgment that you have to take, and your communications with those clients, consistent communications, will help you judge whether there is actually a future in those projects and whether you should consider working on those projects. But the fear about losing those projects, that's not going to get you anywhere, and that's not something that you can control in any case.
It's a good point. Not something you can control. But Pradeep, I've had an interesting question from Hemant. In one of your slides, you mentioned how having a low-pitched voice can help build power and display confidence in these times. Can you share an example of that, or what you meant exactly?
Well, the example is this. We are in this together, and we are in this together. That's the difference. Which one would you go with?
I like it. Very clear demonstration. Hemant, I hope that answered the question. You had a live demonstration as well. So we're coming to our final question for our panelists. And it seems that the last few questions we've had have all been related to communicating to customers and also about being sensitive. So with that, I'm just going to ask each of you for your final words on communication with customers. What is the final takeaway you want us to leave today with? So starting with Amit.
When you communicate with your customer, remember, customer is the person who gives you business. That's the first thought you should get in your mind. They are the people who bring bread to your table and business to your office. So when you communicate to a person who does this for you, your communication should be toned in a tone which takes care of this. Second, make yourself, somebody said that, make yourself important. They should know that at this time, when they need you most, you are with them. It should not be we are working against each other, we are working for each other. And that messages should go out from you to your customers quite regularly. I think this is something which you should keep doing, that can we help? We are in this together. Can we do something extra for you? Or we have a better offering for you. I've been in situations where I've just tied up a few of my customers with each other, maybe at times for no financial benefit, just because I know one needs the other. So just get them together. Idea is get people who need each other together and just think about how we can help. If you keep that attitude of communicating with the person who brings bread to your table and business to your office, you will always keep your tone right.
I like that. Great final words there, Amit. Thank you. And moving on to Ramesh, what is the final takeaway you want us to have when communicating with our customers?
So any communication is dependent on what you can deliver, right? So you may have the finest of communications, but if your brand does not deliver what it is promised, then all your communication will go flat. To be able to deliver, you need people, you need teams to be able to deliver that. For your teams to be able to deliver that now and in the future, they need to be with you on it. And for that, you need to be able to communicate with them consistently and efficiently so that you build a leadership status there. So yes, so building your team through communications is essential to delivering on what your communication promises.
Building your team, a very important takeaway. Thank you, Ramesh. And Pradeep, your final words, and you can say it in any tone you like.
Thank you. Well, I have, what Amit and Ramesh actually covered. First thing, keep those communication lines open. I mean, they are as important as they were before. Don't stop communication. Your customers need to hear from you, and keep that going. And that's very, very important. The tone, you know it best, right? Amit mentioned about you being there for the client. In many of our industries, we position or we tell the clients that we are your extended arms, right? And now is the time to actually prove it. You know you are going that extra mile. They will acknowledge that, right? The relationships that you build now with your customers will stay long. Yeah, I think, for example, Zoom, for example, Zoom was always there, but probably for the last 10 years. We started using it only when TRA actually opened up. Now, would this be the new forward, for example? Is this the new way forward for us to meet clients? Would that be online? So only time will tell. But what we know for sure moving forward is that you close communication channels and everything else is closed for you. That could be your customer, it could be your employee, it could be any of your stakeholder. It could be your investor, for example, right? Once you stop communicating, things will not go the way you want. So don't leave those blanks, fill them in, else someone else will fill them in.
Awesome. Thank you, Amit, Ramesh, and Pradeep, for your awesome insights and also for addressing all of our questions here today. Thank you to all of our attendees. We appreciate you joining us this morning and for all of your questions. Just to clarify, there were a few questions about employee engagement, employee communication. We will be having webinars addressing that in the coming weeks, as well as a couple of questions about digital communication. I know we've got that in the pipeline as well. So make sure you tune in with us on Thursday mornings. And final takeaways for me, at least, where Pradeep, keep communication open. Ramesh, build your team. And Amit, honest givers will gain. So on that note, over to Roshan.
Thank you, Reem.
Thank you, Reem. Thank you very much. So we are just about to wrap up, but before we do, we would like to remind you that we have many more sessions of this nature coming up. And the next one, which is coming up, I would like Sam to come in and say a few details of this particular session. Sam, over to you.
Good morning, guys, and thank you to all the participants and the speakers. I hope this was informative, relative, and very, very interesting for you guys. I'm sure you guys have heard that before. So we would like to invite everybody who's on this call and all your family members and your friends to an evening of wellness that we are starting from the upcoming Monday, which is the 27th of April at 5 p.m. This Monday, we have BNI Rising Phoenix members. That's Shazia, Dr. Fariba, and Afshad, who will be taking us through a session of how to keep your lower back healthy and pain-free during these times of working from home. So the registration links will be out with you guys soon. Please register, share it with your family and friends, and bring whoever you think can benefit from this. Monday evenings, 5 p.m. is when we're going to start. Thank you so much, guys. Look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Samir. We also have one more announcement to make for all of you. For any BNI member who is struggling right now, we would like to offer one-on-one support. If you need any help, please email wendy@bni.ae or call on that particular helpline that you see on your screen, and Wendy will coordinate with you to arrange a coach for a confidential conversation with you. So make use of the opportunity, make use of the helpline, and do connect with Wendy, and it will all be confidential. Right, so we are about to wrap up this morning's sessions. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, all your attendees, for participating, the panelists for bringing us such insightful ideas, thoughts, and to this particular session. I would like to also remind you that as BNI members, you are entitled for 2 CEU points. And we have also had some questions about slides being available to all of us. Yes, they would be, but on a recording on BNI University. It will also be sent to you as a link to your emails. So please, you could download or even rewatch the same webinar once that link comes through to you. We also have started off a Facebook group, which is a private group. So do connect to our Facebook group called BNI Forward, and you will have the link to these recordings and slides in that group as well. One last thing is that we'll, along with all this, we'll also provide you a link to a quick survey. Just give us your thoughts, your feedback, how it went well, what are your ideas and suggestions for us to make this better as we move along during this series of webinars. So once again, thank you to all your attendees. Thank you to all the panelists and everyone who provided input to make this session a very successful one. Good morning to all of you. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.